The wind screamed across the frozen land like a living thing. The colony planet Haven 9 was locked in winter for months, its surface buried under endless snow. In the middle of that icy wilderness stood a small wooden cabin. Inside, a single human lived, Ethan Cole, a maintenance engineer who had chosen isolation over company. He sat by the heater, listening to the soft hum of the machine. Outside, the storm raged stronger, slamming snow against the windows. Ethan took a sip of lukewarm coffee and sighed. He hadn't spoken to another person in 12 days. The last radio call from the outpost said the communication lines were down again. "Figures," he muttered. "Just me, the wind, and a broken antenna." He checked the power gauge on the wall. The numbers flickered weakly. His generator was running low. He made a note to repair it in the morning, though he doubted he'd sleep tonight. The storm was too loud. Then he saw it. Through the frozen glass, a faint blue glow flickered in the distance. At first he thought it was lightning, but it didn't fade. It moved, slowly, toward his cabin. Ethan frowned and stood up. What the hell? He grabbed his flashlight and pointed it outside. The snow was thick, swirling like white smoke, but that glow was definitely coming closer. Step by step. Could be a lost miner, he whispered. Or worse. Something else. No one should be out there in a storm like this. The temperature could kill in minutes. Still, the light kept moving until it was just a few meters from his door. Then bang. A hard knock shook the door. Once. Twice. Then silence. Ethan froze. He reached for his plasma cutter, the closest thing he had to a weapon, and walked toward the door. "Who's there?" he called out. No answer. Only the wind screaming. Another weak knock followed. This time softer. Almost like a hand barely strong enough to move. Against his better judgment, Ethan pulled the door open. Snow blasted in, blinding him for a moment. Then he saw a figure collapse right at his feet. A woman, but not human. Her skin shimmered faintly blue, and light seemed to move under it like liquid energy. She wore a torn silver suit, half buried in snow. Ethan dropped to his knees. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyes flickered open, silver and glowing faintly. She looked straight at him and whispered, her voice weak and trembling, "Share your warmth, or I will die." Then her body went still. Ethan's heart pounded. What the hell does that mean? He dragged her inside, shutting the door hard against the cold. The cabin's air was warm, but she felt like ice in his arms. He laid her on the couch near the heater, unsure what to do. Her body was light, too light. He could almost feel energy humming under her skin. He took off her gloves, revealing long, delicate fingers that glowed faintly at the tips. She wasn't bleeding, but her breathing was shallow. He'd seen alien species before, miners, traders, scientists, but none like her. "All right, lady. Whoever you are, don't die on my couch," he muttered, wrapping her in thermal blankets. For a long moment she didn't move. Then a small light pulsed from her chest, slow, fading in and out, like a weak heartbeat. Ethan sat beside her, rubbing his cold hands together, unsure what to do next. Then she moved. Her eyes opened again, just barely. "Please," she whispered, her voice almost gone. "You are human. Your heat can save me." Ethan blinked. "My heat? What are you?" She reached out, her glowing hand brushing against his wrist. A spark of warmth ran up his arm. He flinched. What was that? She looked at him, fear in her eyes. "I am freezing from the inside, my core, shutting down. If you don't help me, I will die." He hesitated. Every instinct told him this was dangerous. She could be some kind of energy parasite. Maybe even one of those shapeshifters the soldiers warned about. But when he looked at her again, shivering and fading, he couldn't turn away. "All right," he said softly. "I'll help you. But if you try anything—" "I won't," she whispered. Ethan moved closer. The warmth from his body seemed to reach her. Slowly, her color changed from pale blue to a softer silver. Outside, the storm roared louder, shaking the cabin walls. Snow piled against the windows. But inside, the only sound was her weak breathing and the hum of the heater. Ethan stared at her face. She looked peaceful now, but something about her made his chest tighten. There was fear, and something else. A strange connection he couldn't explain. He didn't know who she was or why she had come. But deep down, a voice whispered in his mind, this night was only the beginning, and whatever she was, his quiet life on Haven 9 was about to change forever. The storm howled outside the cabin like a pack of hungry beasts. The wind scratched against the metal walls, and snow clung to the frozen windows, making the world outside disappear into white nothingness. Inside, Ethan sat beside the strange woman he had just dragged from the cold, his heart still racing. The heater hummed weakly, trying to keep the cabin warm. The woman, no, the alien, lay on the couch wrapped in thick blankets. Her silver eyes were half open now, glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked fragile yet somehow powerful, as if she carried a secret the snow could not bury. Ethan rubbed his temples. You picked a bad night to drop in, lady, he muttered. Her lips moved. Lady? She whispered, her voice soft and melodic, almost like music. Is that what you call females? Ethan blinked. Yeah. And what do your people call yourselves? She hesitated. Then, in a low voice, she said, Solari. My name is Lyra. All right, Lyra, he said carefully. You said something before, about my warmth. What did you mean by that? Lyra's eyes fluttered. Our bodies hold energy, but this world drains it. The cold kills us from within. My core, it's fading. Ethan frowned. Core? She pressed a hand to her chest, and for a moment, he saw it. A faint pulse of light under her skin glowing weakly like a dying star. If the core dies, she said, so do I. Ethan stood up and paced the small room. Look, I'm not a doctor. I fix machines, not whatever you are. She tried to sit up, but her arms trembled. You are human. You have heat. That's all I need. Just your warmth. Ethan stopped walking. You mean you want me to share my body heat? Her silver eyes met his. Yes. He stared at her, speechless. Then he laughed, a nervous sound. This has to be a dream. But Lyra didn't smile. Please, she whispered. If I don't absorb warmth soon, I will freeze. Your heat can restart my core. Ethan looked at her again. She was shivering, her glow fading. Despite her strange, alien beauty, there was real fear in her eyes. Fear of death, of the cold closing in. Fine, he said finally. But this isn't some trick, right? I've heard stories. Some aliens drain humans dry. Lyra shook her head weakly. No tricks. I only take what I need to live. I swear it. He sighed and knelt beside her. All right. What do I do? Your hands, she whispered. Hold me. Ethan hesitated. Then he placed his hands over hers. Her skin was smooth and cold like polished glass. A spark of blue light jumped between them, and he felt warmth flow from his chest into her body. It was strange, like touching a live wire, but not painful. He felt his heartbeat slow and the air around them shimmered faintly. Lyra closed her eyes, her breathing growing steadier. That's it, she said softly. You're doing it, he swallowed hard. Feels like you're pulling my strength. I'm sorry, she whispered. Only a little. I'll stop when it's enough. Minutes passed. The storm outside grew louder, but Ethan barely noticed. The air seemed to hum around them. He could feel her energy changing, her body warming. Then suddenly the lights in the cabin flickered. Ethan looked at the power gauge, half drained. Hey, what's happening? He said, pulling his hand back. Lyra opened her eyes. The silver glow in them was brighter now. Your energy systems, she murmured. I took from them too. I didn't mean to. Great, Ethan muttered. Now my generator's dying. She looked ashamed. I can give it back once I'm stable. Yeah? And when will that be? Her expression turned sad. When the sun rises, well, if it rises here. Ethan sighed and dropped onto a chair. You really know how to ruin a quiet night, you know that? Lyra tilted her head. Quiet night? He chuckled softly. Never mind, just rest, okay? We'll figure something out. She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes softening. Why did you help me? He shrugged. Because you knocked on my door, and because I didn't want to find a frozen body in the morning. Lyra smiled faintly. Humans are strange. Ethan leaned back exhausted. The heater hummed, the storm roared, and two souls, one human, one alien, sat in the warmth of a small cabin, trying to survive a world that wanted them both dead. But deep inside, Ethan felt something stir. A sense that this woman, this glowing stranger, carried a story far bigger than a simple crash or a storm. Something hidden, something dangerous. And as Lyra's light grew brighter, Ethan realized one thing. He was no longer alone. Yet he couldn't shake the question whispering in his mind. What if saving her means losing myself? Morning never came. The storm outside had grown stronger, turning the world into a white blur. The cabin creaked under the weight of snow pressing against its walls. Ethan Cole hadn't slept. He sat near the heater, staring at the alien woman, Lyra, wrapped in his thickest blanket. Her faint glow had returned, but she still looked weak. Every few seconds, a flicker of silver light passed under her skin, like a pulse that couldn't decide if it wanted to live or fade. Ethan rubbed his tired eyes. You're still breathing. That's something. Lyra's voice was soft, almost fragile. The warmth you shared last night. It helped, but it's not enough. He raised a brow. Not enough? You almost drained my generator. I didn't mean to, she said, her tone full of guilt. My body absorbs energy without control when I'm dying. I can manage it now if you let me try again. Ethan hesitated. You want to touch me again? She nodded slowly. Not like before. I can control it this time. I can share the flow. He studied her glowing silver eyes, unsure if he believed her. But then he noticed her hands trembling. The tips of her fingers had turned pale blue again, like frost spreading from within. You'll die without it, he murmured. She met his gaze. Yes, but I will not take unless you agree. Something in her voice, quiet, respectful, made him nod. All right, but if I feel my heart stop, we're done. Lyra managed a weak smile. Understood. Ethan moved closer, sitting beside her on the couch. The heater flickered as if even the machine was holding its breath. Now what? He asked. Place your hand here. She guided his hand to the center of her chest, where a faint glow pulsed like a hidden sun. Her skin was smooth but ice cold. He could feel the faint hum beneath it like a machine running out of power. Now, she whispered. Breathe slowly. Let your warmth move through your blood. I will follow it. Ethan exhaled, confused but doing as she said. Slowly he felt a strange pull, gentle, like the tide drawing back from shore. Heat began to flow from him into her. It wasn't painful this time. It was peaceful, almost calming. Her glow brightened. The air shimmered faintly between them. Ethan felt lightheaded, his heartbeat slowing to match hers. Then something unexpected happened. For a brief moment he saw images, not with his eyes but inside his mind. Stars swirling, a massive silver ship gliding through dark space, a group of glowing beings standing around a crystal core. A sudden explosion, a crash, screams, silence. He gasped and pulled his hand away. What was that? Lyra looked at him in surprise. You saw. Your memories, he said, still shaken. I saw your ship, the crash, your people. Lyra's expression softened. The bond allowed it. Our energy connects minds as well as bodies. Bond? He repeated. Yes, she whispered. Now you carry a piece of me, and I of you. Ethan's chest tightened. That's not how I plan to spend my week. Lyra almost laughed, a sound that reminded him of chimes. Nor I. But then her face darkened. Those images you saw, the machines that attacked us, they are still out there. He frowned. Machines? You mean something caused your crash? Yes. Hunters. They feed on Solari energy. They came for us. Her voice trembled slightly. They will come again when they sense my signal. Ethan's stomach sank. And you're saying my cabin is now a giant beacon? Lyra lowered her gaze. I'm sorry. He stood and started pacing. Great. So I save an alien, bond with her energy, and now I've got killer robots on my doorstep. Perfect. Lyra tried to rise, but her legs gave out. Ethan caught her before she fell. The contact sent another faint pulse through them. Warm, electric. For a moment, they just stared at each other. You are angry, she said quietly. But I did not choose this. I only wanted to live. He sighed. Yeah, I know. He helped her back to the couch and checked the power meter again. It was dropping faster now. My system can't handle much more of this. Lyra looked around the cabin. I can stabilize your power. My energy can repair your systems. But I must stay close to you. How close? He asked. Her eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the dim light of the heater. Very close. Ethan stared at her for a moment, then shook his head. You're one strange houseguest, Lyra. She tilted her head. Houseguest? Never mind, he said with a small smile. Just don't fry me again. Lyra smiled too, soft, almost shy. I will try. Outside, the wind began to die down, but a deep rumbling echoed through the frozen valley. Ethan turned toward the sound, his blood running cold. Lyra's expression changed instantly. Her silver glow dimmed in fear. They've found me, she whispered. Ethan looked at her sharply. Who? Her answer came in one word that chilled him more than the storm ever could. The hunters. The rumbling outside was deep, metallic, and growing louder. It wasn't the storm anymore. The storm had faded into a slow, whispering wind. But the new sound vibrated through the frozen ground like footsteps. Heavy, mechanical footsteps. Ethan moved to the window, brushing frost away with his sleeve. He couldn't see far, just white fog and the faint outline of the snow dunes. But something out there was moving. Slow, deliberate, and coming straight toward the cabin. Lyra, he said, not looking back. What are those things? Her silver glow dimmed to a pale shimmer. Hunters, she whispered. Machines built long ago to feed on Solari energy. They search for us across worlds. Ethan turned around, his jaw tight. And you led them here. I didn't mean to, she said quickly. When I drew energy from your systems, it released a pulse. They must have sensed it. He cursed under his breath. Damn it, Lyra, you said you could control it. I thought I could, she replied softly, guilt thick in her voice. But I was too weak. He grabbed his plasma rifle from the wall, checking the power cell. It was half charged, enough for maybe a few bursts, not enough for an army. How many are out there? He asked. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment. The markings on her neck glowed faintly as she focused. 3, maybe 4. Their cores burn like fire. They are close. Ethan's heart pounded. Then we need to shut everything down. No lights, no heat, nothing. Lyra looked at him alarmed. Without heat, you'll die. I'll take my chances. He started switching off the heater and lights. The cabin dimmed, bathed in the cold blue glow from her body. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the faint hum of her energy. Then came the sound again, closer now, metal against snow. Lyra gripped the edge of the couch. They don't just track energy. They smell it. Even life heat. Ethan frowned. Then they'll find us anyway. She nodded slowly. Yes, unless I stop them. He turned to her sharply. Stop them? You can barely stand. I still have my core, she said. I can overload it. Release a blast strong enough to blind their sensors. It will buy us time. Overload? That sounds like suicide. Lyra met his eyes, calm but sad. It might be. But if they reach me, they will take my energy. And they will not stop there. They will use it to hunt others. Ethan clenched his fists. No, there's got to be another way. Outside, the ground shook again. This time, Ethan saw them, dark shapes emerging from the storm. Tall, spidery machines with glowing red eyes. Their bodies were made of black metal, legs sharp as blades. They moved with terrifying grace, scanning the snow with beams of red light. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. They look like nightmares. They are, Lyra said softly. They were born from Solari technology long ago. We created them to collect energy from dying stars. But they evolved. They learned to take it from living beings instead. He stared at her in disbelief. You created your own predators? Lyra's face turned away. We thought we could control everything. We were wrong. The machines stopped about 50 meters from the cabin. Their eyes flickered, scanning the area. One of them released a sharp metallic shriek that made the cabin walls vibrate. Ethan raised his rifle and took aim through the cracked window. If they come closer, I shoot. Lyra's hand reached out and touched his shoulder. Your weapon won't stop them. Their armor absorbs kinetic fire. You'll only make them angry. He laughed bitterly. Then what, Lyra? You want me to invite them in for coffee? No, she said quietly. You must trust me. She stood up, her silver light growing brighter. Her body shimmered with waves of energy, filling the room with a faint hum. Ethan stepped back. What are you doing? I will mask your life signature, she said, her voice steady. But you must not move. Her hands began to glow, and the air shimmered around them like heat rising from sand. Ethan felt cold wash over him, as if his body temperature had dropped in seconds. The cabin's interior faded into silence. No hum, no sound, not even the beat of his heart. Outside, the machines stopped moving. Their red lights blinked in confusion, scanning the area. Then one of them turned away. Another followed. Ethan's breath trembled. It's working, he whispered. But Lyra didn't answer. Her light flickered violently. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest. Lyra. He rushed to her side. Her body was shaking, her glow fading fast. I used too much, she gasped. My core. It's burning out. Ethan grabbed her hand, feeling the chill return. No, you're not doing this again. She tried to smile. You humans, always trying to fix what can't be fixed. Watch me, he said, wrapping his arms around her, pressing his warmth against her cold skin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, faintly, her light steadied. The machines outside let out another metallic roar. But this time, it sounded distant. Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. They're gone. For now. Ethan exhaled, exhausted. You saved us. Lyra's eyes opened slightly, a weak shimmer of silver. No, Ethan. I only delayed them. They will come again. Stronger. She closed her eyes, her light fading to a dim, trembling glow. Ethan held her close, listening to the quiet outside. The storm was over. But deep down he knew. The real danger had only just begun. The silence after the storm felt heavier than the storm itself. Ethan stood by the window, staring into the pale morning light that barely reached through the clouds. Snow stretched endlessly in every direction, smooth and untouched. Yet he knew they were out there, the hunters, waiting. Behind him, Lyra sat near the heater, her body weak but glowing faintly again. The light that had almost faded last night now pulsed gently beneath her skin. She looked peaceful, but her eyes betrayed her fear. Ethan didn't say a word for a long time. He just stared at the horizon, gripping his plasma rifle tightly. Every shadow in the snow made him tense. Finally, he spoke. "They'll come back, won't they?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes. The hunters never stop. Once they sense energy, they track it until it's gone." He turned to her. "You said they feed on Solari energy. That means they're after you, not me." Lyra's gaze fell to the floor. "When we bonded, our energies linked. They'll sense you too now. You are part of my signal." Ethan gave a bitter laugh. "Great, so I'm glowing bait on an ice planet." Lyra's expression softened. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't mean for you to share my danger." He sighed. "Yeah, well, what's done is done." A sudden metallic sound echoed in the distance, faint but distinct, like gears grinding against ice. Ethan froze, then ran to the small radar panel on the wall. It blinked weakly, picking up several moving blips. "They're back," he whispered. Lyra stood, trembling slightly. "How many?" "3. No, 4, Ethan said, eyes narrowing. Heading straight this way. He checked his rifle. The power cell was half drained. The generator was running on fumes. They had maybe 1 hour of heat left. Ethan turned to Lyra. "Can you run?" "I can barely stand," she admitted. "My body hasn't fully restored." "Then we make our stand here," he said firmly. Lyra looked confused. "You would fight them? For me?" Ethan met her gaze. "You came to my door asking for warmth. You didn't deserve to die out there." "Nobody does." For a moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, "You are strange, human, but kind." The sound outside grew louder. The metal crunch of their limbs echoed through the frozen air. Ethan turned off the heater again and crouched by the door, rifle ready. His heart pounded in his chest, but his hands were steady. Through the narrow window, he finally saw them. 4 tall machines, black as midnight, gliding over the snow. Each had a glowing red core in its chest and thin blade-like arms that cut through the air. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly as she stared at them. They were once our tools. They gathered energy from the stars, but now they hunt anything that burns with light. Ethan aimed his rifle. "Then let's see if they like plasma." The first shot cracked through the air, striking one of the machines square in the chest. The explosion lit the snow in a flash of blue fire. But when the light cleared, the hunter still stood, its armor barely scratched. "Damn it," Ethan muttered. "You weren't kidding." The machine turned its head toward the cabin. Its red eyes locked onto him, glowing brighter. Then with terrifying speed it lunged forward. "Down!" Lyra shouted. Ethan dove aside as a beam of red energy tore through the door, burning a hole straight through the metal wall. The cabin filled with smoke and heat. Lyra raised her hands, her body glowing fiercely. A wave of silver energy burst outward, forming a shield that deflected the next blast. The hunters staggered back, their sensors flickering. Ethan watched in awe. "How are you doing that?" Lyra's voice was strained. "Your warmth gave me strength, but it won't last long." The machines regrouped, forming a circle around the cabin. One of them raised its arms, releasing a piercing scream that made Ethan's ears ring. The snow around them began to melt, the air vibrating with power. Ethan grabbed Lyra's arm. "We can't stay here." "There's a ridge," she said quickly, pointing north. "If we reach it, I can draw power from the planet's core line. It might give me enough strength to fight them." Ethan didn't hesitate. He threw on his heavy coat and helped her stand. The moment they stepped outside, the wind slapped against their faces, sharp and biting. The hunters spotted them instantly. Red beams shot through the snow, missing by inches. Ethan fired back, his rifle whining from the heat. One blast struck a hunter's leg, blowing off a chunk of metal. The creature stumbled but didn't fall. "Run!" Ethan shouted. They sprinted through the storm, their boots sinking deep into the snow. Lyra's glow cut a path through the white, her light shimmering like a dying star. Behind them, The hunters followed, silent, relentless, unstoppable. As they neared the ridge, the ground began to tremble. Lyra's body pulsed with brighter light. "Almost there," she gasped. But before they could reach it, a shadow moved above them. A fifth hunter, massive, towering twice as tall as the rest, descended from the storm clouds, landing in front of them with a crash that shook the earth. Ethan stumbled back, eyes wide. "That's new." Lyra's voice trembled. "The Alpha. It controls the others." The giant machine turned its head toward her, red eyes burning with hunger. "Target located," it said in a deep, metallic voice. "Solari core detected. Human host linked." Ethan raised his rifle, even though he knew it wouldn't work. "You'll have to go through me first." Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes full of light and sorrow. "Ethan, this fight might end us both." He smiled faintly. "Then let's make it count." The sky above Haven 9 was a gray ocean, churning with wind and lightning. The snowstorm had returned furious and wild, wrapping the frozen ridge in blinding white. But through the roaring wind came the deep metallic growl of the hunters, and the echo of war. Ethan and Lyra stood at the ridge's edge, breath steaming in the freezing air. Below them, the hunters spread out across the valley like black spiders against the snow. Their red cores burned bright in the storm, marking them like living embers in the dark. The Alpha hunter, the giant one, stepped forward. Its voice was low, mechanical, and cold. "Target confirmed. Terminate resistance." Ethan tightened his grip on his plasma rifle, though his hands were numb and shaking. "Terminate this," he muttered, firing a blast straight at the Alpha's head. The bolt hit, but the creature didn't even flinch. The shot ricocheted off its armor, vanishing into the snow. Lyra raised her hand, light bursting from her fingertips. A wave of silver energy slammed into the nearest hunter, melting part of its chest plate. The machine stumbled but quickly rebalanced, its eyes flickering red again. "They're adapting," she said through gritted teeth. "My energy hurts them, but only for a moment." "Then we'll just have to hit harder," Ethan replied. The machines moved in, their arms unfolding into long blades that hummed with heat. They surrounded the ridge, advancing from all sides. Lyra turned to Ethan. "Stay behind me." He shook his head. "Not happening." For a second their eyes met, hers glowing silver, his fierce and determined. Then the first hunter attacked. It lunged with impossible speed, slashing downward. Ethan rolled aside, snow spraying everywhere, and fired a close-range blast that struck the creature's neck. The metal sizzled and cracked, sparks flying. Lyra raised both hands and shouted something in her alien tongue. The air exploded with light, silver arcs of energy leaping from her body like lightning. 3 hunters staggered back, their systems sparking wildly, but every pulse of energy drained her. Ethan could see it, the way her glow dimmed after each attack, the tremor in her hands. "Lyra, you're burning yourself out." She didn't answer. Her focus was entirely on the battle. The Alpha hunter raised one of its massive arms. Its palm opened, revealing a red energy core that began to glow brighter, charging. Ethan recognized that light instantly. "Lyra, down!" he shouted. A beam of pure red fire shot out, carving through the air. Ethan tackled Lyra to the ground just as the beam struck the ridge behind them. The explosion threw them both forward. Snow and debris rained down. Ethan's ears rang. He looked up to see the Alpha still charging another blast. His rifle was gone, buried in the snow. He tried to move, but his body screamed in pain. Lyra crawled toward him, her face pale, her glow flickering. "Ethan," she whispered, "you have to move." "I can't," he said through clenched teeth. "Legs busted." She looked toward the Alpha, her expression hardening. "Then I'll move for both of us." Before he could stop her, she stood, light flaring around her. The storm itself seemed to bend away from her radiance. She floated slightly off the ground, her voice echoing in the cold air. "Solari core, awaken." The light inside her chest burst forth, pure and blinding. The hunters paused, their sensors blinking rapidly as if blinded by the brilliance. Ethan shielded his eyes. Lyra, what are you doing? Giving them something to fear, she said softly. The blast erupted, silver light slamming into the Alpha, tearing through its armor. Its roar shook the valley, but still it stood, black smoke pouring from its body. Lyra fell to her knees, trembling. The light dimmed. I can't hold it. Ethan crawled to her, wrapping his arms around her as the remaining hunters closed in again. You did enough. Rest. But she shook her head weakly. Not yet. One last surge. She pressed her glowing palm to his chest. Ethan gasped as warmth surged through him, energy filling his body like fire in his veins. His rifle, half buried in the snow, began to glow with the same silver light. What did you do? He stammered. I shared my power, she whispered. Now fight, human. Ethan stood, feeling alive in a way he never had before. The rifle pulsed in his hands, every shot now leaving a trail of silver fire. He fired at the nearest hunter. This time, the blast punched straight through its core. The machine collapsed in the snow, burning from within. Another charged at him, but Ethan moved faster, glowing streaks of light following his movements. He fired again and again, each shot deadly precise. Lyra smiled faintly through the haze. You fight like one of us now. Guess I'm learning, he said, panting, but the Alpha was still standing. It raised both arms, its voice booming through the valley. Assimilate the Solari host, Lyra gasped, clutching her chest. The air around her shimmered as the Alpha began pulling energy from her, stealing her light. Ethan roared and charged forward, firing everything he had. The rifle overheated, glowing white-hot in his hands, but he didn't stop. One last shot hit the Alpha's cracked chest, and the red core inside it exploded. The blast threw Ethan backward. The world went white. When the light faded, the ridge was silent. The Alpha lay broken, half buried in snow, its red glow gone. The other hunters had collapsed too, their power fading with their leader. Ethan crawled toward Lyra, who lay still in the snow, her glow almost gone. Lyra, hey, stay with me. Her lips moved faintly. You kept your promise. You didn't let me die alone. Don't talk like that, he whispered. You're going to make it. She smiled softly, her light flickering like a dying flame. You gave warmth, more than I ever knew. Then she went still. Ethan held her close as snow began to fall again, slow, gentle flakes landing on her silver skin. The battle was over. But for Ethan, the cold had never felt so empty. The snow fell silently over the ridge, covering the scars of battle. Shattered metal, black smoke, and broken machines lay buried beneath the drifting white. The world looked peaceful again, like nothing had ever happened. But Ethan Cole sat in the snow, motionless, his arms wrapped around Lyra's still body. Her glow had faded completely now. Her silver eyes were closed, her face calm as if she were only sleeping. Come on, he whispered. His voice cracked in the cold. You don't get to leave me now. No answer. Only the sound of the wind moving softly over the frozen ground. Ethan pressed his forehead against hers. Her skin was cold but not like ice. Soft, smooth, almost human now. He could still feel the faint hum of energy deep inside her chest, flickering like a dying ember. You saved me, he said quietly. You saved all of us, and I can't even save you. For a long time, he didn't move. His breath came out in white clouds. His body ached, his rifle was gone, and his leg throbbed from the fall. But none of it mattered. The silence felt heavier than any wound. Then, something happened. A faint spark of silver light shimmered where his hand touched hers. It was weak, barely there, but it pulsed once. Then again, Ethan blinked. Lyra, no movement. But the spark spread slowly across her fingers, up her arm and into his hand. A warmth filled his skin, gentle and strange. He felt his heartbeat sync with the faint rhythm of that light. Then he heard her voice. Not out loud, but inside his mind. Do not cry, Ethan Cole. My body may sleep, but I'm not gone. He froze. Lyra, where are you? Inside you, the voice said softly. When we fought, I shared my core with you. My energy, my essence. It keeps your heart beating and carries me within. Ethan's eyes widened. You're part of me now? The light in her chest glowed faintly and her lips curved into the smallest smile. 2 lives. 1 warmth. You gave me your fire. I gave you my light. Ethan looked down at his hands. They shimmered faintly, the same silver hue as her glow. He felt it inside him now, a quiet hum, alive and constant. He didn't know whether to cry or laugh. You crazy alien? You really don't know how to say goodbye, do you? Goodbye is not forever, she whispered in his thoughts. The bond between us will live as long as you do. Ethan took a deep breath. Then I'll keep living. For both of us. He stood slowly, his leg no longer aching, his body filled with warmth despite the freezing air. The sky above was clearing, revealing faint sunlight breaking through the gray clouds. The world glowed with new light, soft, silver-white light that looked almost alive. He looked down at Lyra's body. Her glow faded completely now, but there was peace in her expression. She looked human, almost too human. Ethan built a cairn of snow and stone around her, whispering words he didn't fully understand. You didn't belong to this world, he said, but maybe now, a part of you does. When he finished, he stood at the ridge's edge. The wreckage of the hunters lay silent below. No red lights, no movement. Just snow swallowing everything that once burned. A few hours later, a rescue drone appeared on the horizon, its beacon blinking through the fading storm. Ethan waved it down, though he kept his distance from where Lyra rested. When the drone's speakers crackled to life, a voice came through. Engineer Cole, this is Outpost Delta. We picked up a massive energy surge from your location. Are you all right? Ethan looked down at his glowing hands, then toward the cairn. Yeah, he said quietly. I think I am. Copy that. Prepare for extraction, the voice replied. Ethan climbed aboard the drone, glancing back one last time at the ridge. The snow was falling gently again, the sunlight catching on it, turning the world silver. He touched his chest. The faint hum of Lyra's energy beat softly beneath his skin. As the drone lifted off, he whispered, You're still here, aren't you? Her voice was faint, warm, and full of calm. Always, he smiled. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. The cold didn't bite anymore. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of her presence. Weeks later, when Ethan returned to the outpost, people noticed something different about him. His skin sometimes shimmered faintly in dim light. Machines that used to break now worked better when he touched them. The engineers joked that he had magic hands. He never told them why. At night, when the wind howled outside his quarters, Ethan would stand by the window, watching the snow fall across Haven 9. Sometimes he'd hear a whisper, soft, musical, like a voice carried on the wind, share your warmth. He would close his eyes, smile, and whisper back, always. And deep within him, the faint silver light would flicker, steady and alive, the warmth of two worlds, joined forever in one heart.